Hi, my name is Colton Leahy. I'm an anti-geoengineering activist. I've been at this line of work for 3.5 years, well over. It's been a long time, but I'm still here, just like as if today was yesterday, as if it's a brand new day, a brand new opportunity. That's what I see every new day as, like everything's a new beginning. You can draw an ending, you can make a beginning almost anywhere you'd like. Instead of a day, you could make it a week, you could make it a month, you could even make it a year. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the UV radiation that's affecting the planet right now. And especially in our area, we recently survived a heat wave that went up to 40 degrees Celsius in Halifax, if you factor in the humidity. Some people didn't have air conditioning, and fans sold out very quickly, so not everybody was able to keep themselves cool during the heat wave. No doubt there were people that probably had a stroke, something of that nature. I hope that, you know, in the future that we have better preparation, that we have the air conditioning or fan, something to help keep us cool, because I expect more of these heat waves to come. We're not out of the woods yet. I also expect us to have a very late summer. It'll probably extend well into October. It might even go as far into November. Maybe around mid-November we'll still be getting these high 20 degrees Celsius temperatures, 25 and above, until that time. And then when winter comes, it'll just hit us, right? Like it usually does, from one extreme to another. And that's exactly what you can expect with geoengineering, to the point where people should be scratching their heads and wondering what the hell's going on with the weather. Like, I've never seen it like this before. Even Cape Breton has never had a heat wave such as the ones that we've been having. They never last 3 days consistently, and it's been happening every week. I believe this might be the third week in a row that it had happened. So they're happening more frequently and they're becoming more severe. Processes like geoengineering is making this worse, but let's also factor in the other equations as well, because if you look at the forest fires, when the smoke rises into the atmosphere, it captures more heat. When the sun shines and it can't come back out of the earth, when the smoke blocks it and keeps it trapped inside, it causes the surrounding environment to warm up rapidly. So every time we have a major forest fire, we also get a major heat wave to accompany it, because the smoke particulates in the atmosphere are blocking the sunlight and preventing it from reaching back out into space. This is the same idea as solar radiation management, which is being used in geoengineering operations. It's the same concept. When you load the atmosphere full of particulates, it blocks the incoming thermal radiation for a time, but it also sets the stage for a far worse heat wave in the near future. That's what geoengineering does. That's what we can see with our own eyes. Not only that, but when they do the chemical cool downs, we can see us drop into frigid temperatures. We get these cold snaps, they freeze. We go from positive 20 from one day down to negative 23 the next, and it just happens overnight. So we see one extreme to the other, and that's exactly, again, what you can expect with geoengineering. In regard to the UV radiation, the more the ozone is depleted, the more harmful radiation gets in from the sun. There are certain gamma rays and X-rays that come from the sun that do not hit us, because the Earth's ozone and magnetic field deflects much of it. However, given the fact that the ozone layer is depleting due to the fact that oxygen is not reaching the higher levels of the atmosphere to become O3, that's what the ozone is. It's made out of O2. So oxygen reaches the higher end of the atmosphere and it becomes O3, which is the ozone. So the reason the ozone is depleting, not just because of the particulates that are eating away at it due to our greenhouse gas emissions and the particulates that the geoengineers are spraying, but the particulates are also stopping oxygen from reaching the upper level of the atmosphere, which is what's causing the ozone to become more thin. And we can see this and we can measure this with our own senses. When you go outside and you feel the sun shine on your skin, You can feel it burns like you're like a laser beam is shining on you. Like it's not even fit anymore. The way the sun, how radiant it is. You can see it recently. It's been happening over the years, but it's very evident now. When you step outside and you let the sun shine on you, even for a moment, you can feel just how hot it really is. And that's because we're receiving UVB and UVC thermal radiation. Normally, we are not supposed to get any type of UVC whatsoever. Zero. It's supposed to be 0%. And that's gone up by a large fraction. It's about, I don't know the exact measurements for UVC because the systems that we have to measure them are not calibrated to measure UVC. UVB, on the other hand, has gone up 70%, which is a massive spike. Normally, there's only about 5% UVB that makes it into the planet. Or excuse me, yes, yeah, that's right, 5%. And now it's been 70%, so it's gone up by quite an amount, I would say. UVA, of course, is what gives us our sunburns, and there's been an increase in that as well. Whereas with the UVB, that's where we extract vitamin D. We're not getting our vitamin D the way that we used to because the particulates in the sky are causing the rays of the sunlight to backscatter and to diffuse in such a way that we're not receiving the nutrients from the sun that we were a couple of decades ago due to these programs. And as you can imagine, the consequences of that are catastrophic. When we don't get enough sunlight, when we don't get our vitamin D, it causes depression. And we can see that depression is rising as well as the economy is going down. Conditions are getting worse. The climate is getting worse. So all the things that we have expected to see are now coming to light. But it's happening much faster than people anticipate. Like I said, I've been trying to get this issue out for over 3.5 years. And it's very difficult given the fact that not very many people want to have an open dialogue about this type of topic. But unfortunately, it's a conversation that we must have. It's absolutely necessary for us to talk about this because we know that it's happening. We can prove that it's not condensation trails that are coming out of the back of the jets because we can see them turn on and off. And we can see these cuts in the trails, like somebody took a knife and cut through the trail, and you can see that it stops and then it goes again, as if it deactivated and then reactivated. Or my theory is that the spray canister was running on empty, and when it switches over to the new full canister, there's a temporary delay, which causes the particulates to spray out, stop, and then go again, kind of like the feedback delays you see when you notice that there's an interruption in like a channel, like when you see the way water acts. Like if you've ever used those fountain pop drinks, when you see it temporarily turn into water because they ran out of Pepsi or Coke or whatever drink it is, and so water comes out because there's nothing to fill that void. But then it'll come back because the canister switched into a new one, and then that's why it goes back to being Pepsi again. It's the same concept. So when we see that happening, we can prove that they're not condensation trails, given the fact that the humidity levels across the globe have gone down, not up. And condensation is formed due to humidity. So when you take that away, there should be less opportunities for a condensation trail to form. And furthermore, it should not persist for hours on end. We should not see it covering the sky like a grid pattern. And conveniently, it only seems to happen where the sun is directly located or in front of where the sun's going to be located later in the day. But if you look back to where the sun rose, where it came up in the morning, you'll see that there are no clouds or trails. It's all in front of us, in front of where the sun's going, because geoengineering is intentional, and you can see its effect that it's having on the environment. If it wasn't intentional, then we would see these condensation trails and they would behave with the same characteristics. But we have pictures from all around the globe that show different colors, different variations, different styles of spray, different ways that the spray materializes across the sky. There are many factors and conditions that they say influences a condensation trail. But of the factors that they list, they say humidity is the most important. And what they don't tell you is that the engine that's used in the high bypass turbofan jet engine is using mostly non-combusted air, 85% to be exact. So even if 15% of the air passed through and became a condensation trail, it should not be nearly as thick as what we're seeing, and it should disappear rather quickly after it forms. And that's not what we're seeing, that's not what the pictures are showing, and it's not what the film footage is showing either. On top of that, we have lab tests and rainwater samples that prove that heavy metal contamination has come down from the sky. You can see that bumblebees have gotten aluminum contamination. You can Google that. There's a source on that. And on top of that, they've also shown that bees are getting Alzheimer's. And there's a connection, of course, between aluminum and Alzheimer's now. Thanks to that study, they were able to figure out that aluminum, when it builds up inside of our brain, can trigger early warning signs for Alzheimer's or dementia. And we're seeing that case is rising. More and more senior citizens are getting Alzheimer's and dementia. Also, younger people are getting cancer and are dying of diseases that have never existed, that we've never seen before. And I'm not saying that there aren't factors that are influencing that, but I think when people exclude the geoengineering elephant in the room, they're not seeing the whole picture. They're not seeing how all the dots connect. Because when you think about it, all of us share the same air. It all comes from around the globe. It goes through different countries and different channels, but it's still the same oxygen nonetheless. And what we're breathing in has an effect on our thought process and our development and our cognitive function. So when you take that away slowly, then people become less cognitive, they become less intelligent, they become less aware, they become more apathetic and depressed. That's what this program does. That's the psychological aspect of it. There's also numerous natural effects that affect the natural environment, biological effects. The list is nearly endless. This is one of the biggest crimes ever committed by governments around the globe. The US military is involved, the Chinese military, Russia. Multiple countries are engaged in this program. So it's not just happening in one specific area. It's a global endeavor. And it's been going on since the mid-1940s and has picked up over the years rapidly with the deteriorating conditions on Starship Planet Earth, is what I call it. Because we're all passengers, we have a life support system. And to that end, we have a responsibility in some way or another to try to take care of the main systems that support and nourish life so that life is possible. Geoengineering takes that possibility away. Therefore, I have no other choice but to bring it up in discussion and to engage in it, because I know that it's the biggest threat to my existence and to all future generations. So it's absolutely necessary to get the word out on this topic. If you've seen the California car fire, tragedy, really, and my heart goes out to all the victims that were lost in the fire. I'm very sorry to hear about that, and we have our own problems here as well. Nothing nearly as bad as what you had with your natural disaster, but we did have a flood back in 2016, so the conditions on the planet are getting worse, and we're feeling it all over the globe. And we know that poverty is getting worse. We know that things are not getting better, even though that's what they want you to think, right? To focus on that. And I'm not saying don't be positive. It's not like all hope is lost just yet. There's still a chance that we could turn this around and put an end to it. We're not quite there. We're not at the Venus syndrome stage. We're not at that scenario yet. But we're seeing the early warning signs, just as it was predicted, both on geoengineeringwatch.org, and I myself, doing my own independent research into this topic, I can verify that much of what geoengineeringwatch.org is saying is completely factually accurate and valid. And if you do your own independent investigation, you could challenge geoengineeringwatch.org and try to debunk it, Try to see if it's not true. Do your own investigation into it. And if you feel like this isn't worth your time, and you feel that the climate is doing okay, and that that's not an issue, geoengineering is not the climate issue that we should be talking about, then fair enough. But I just felt, as a person who appreciates science, that you'd want to investigate something to find out its legitimacy before, making it up in your head that you don't believe it. Shouldn't we apply that to every aspect of our life? Shouldn't we always question the information that is given to us? And I encourage anyone to research and do their investigation on anything that I talked about in this video. I wish I had more time to go over more details with you, but I just wanted to give you a brief update on what was going on, the UV radiation, and how geoengineering is affecting us so far. 2018 hasn't been a very good year. We're off to a pretty bad start, and things have been pretty rough ever since, I think is fair to say. But we have to hang in there, and we have to do what is right. We have to follow our instincts, trust our gut, and do our research. Before we post an opinion, make sure that the opinion is valid and it's backed up with facts. Why post something if you haven't even considered whether it has any truth or not? And truth is important in a world where so many people don't even know what the truth even is, or what it would sound like if they even heard it. That's how naive and blindsided and disillusioned that so many of us have become. And geoengineering is partially to blame for all of that as well. I'm not saying it's the boogeyman of all of our problems, but the consequences of not contesting it and stopping it are very dire and terminal and horrifying, to say the least. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. It must be done. I always say I'm sorry that it has to be me, but it's me. And if we spread enough awareness on this issue, they will have no choice but to shut it down, because the military is not going to want any part in it if they are fully informed of what is happening and what is being put into the atmosphere. They will not want to be a part of that once they are aware of what they're doing and the harm that it is causing. We can be pretty sure that the military is not being told everything that is going on up in the sky and what's going on inside of the jet aircraft. Maybe some of them aren't aware of what they're putting into the atmosphere, and maybe some of them are. Regardless, they are being fed a narrative that what they're doing is just and good, and that they're saving the planet from a climate catastrophe. It's an issue of national security to the United Nations, so obviously it's being done, and they would certainly not ask for our permission to do this. They already see themselves as way above and beyond the law of man and nature. They don't even follow their own laws, let alone natural laws. So what would you expect? Would you expect anything less? Of course not. We all have to play our part. Time is quickly running out. I wish that we had more. I wish that we could just enjoy ourselves and relax and have fun for the rest of our days, but eventually we hit that threshold. We've already hit a couple the past couple of years, and I'm sure that we're going to hit a couple of more. We just need to hold on tight, stay true to yourself, stay true to your goals, and please, play your part. Don't just sit on the bench while the planet sinks like the Titanic. Play your part to help people get the information that they need and they deserve to know. That's the purpose of this. It's far better to do something with the right intentions than to just quit and give up and say that you can't do it, it can't be done. You just got to give it your best shot and see where it goes. Anyways, I'm almost at the 20-minute threshold. I'm going to cut it here. I obviously had a lot on my mind, but just hold in there. We'll get through this. I'm going to do everything that it takes. I'm still working on my email that I'm going to be sending again, and I'm still going to try to get in touch with environmental groups and political leaders, but most importantly, it's you. It's you that I need to get in touch with. It's the people, because it's us that has to make the difference. We've been thrown under the bus. Most future generations have been thrown under the bus. So it's up to us. We have to do what's right, and we have to take a stand. Help me get this issue out there. You might be the one the one stone that causes the landslide, if you know what I mean. You might be that person. So please help me get this issue out there so that more people are aware of it, so that we can stop it. And if we stop it, we might have a chance for survival.